Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Wake Up with me, Sonia P. And guess it is Monday, the 30th of June, last day of June. What the heck has happened this year? We are exactly 9 a.m. British summertime. And thank you for being here. It is much appreciated. Welcome to the show that knows if calling out murder is worse than actual murder, you are part of the problem. This is the show where no F's are given, right? We don't back down. We say what is and move on. Absolutely. Good morning. Welcome to another beautiful, beautiful week. On today's show, former MEP, latter-day commentator Godfrey Bloom is here to talk about the true history of Palestine, Israel, and Zionism. We'll also be joined by comedians Tanya Edwards and Alistair Williams, touring and talking together. And 2025, which I've already alluded to, is when calling out murder is apparently worse than murder. And haven't we had a good insight this weekend into who has truly infiltrated the truth movement? Oh, yes, indeed we have. And in New York, Diddy deliberations. It's the end of the trial. Well, now they're off to deliberate. And Glastonbury, absolutely selective outrage, absolute madness. And disability hate, welfare reforms, death of Daniel Angerin, really awful, terrible, terrible stuff. And a viewer rant, Teresa in our comments, her day in York, plus Nature Spot with a duck family from Michelle, also one of our viewers. And I'm going to end with gratitude, because you can never get enough gratitude, in my opinion. How are you? And why is London lady saying we've been hacked? What's going on? What's going on, kids? How are you? Me is already so hot. Yes, talking about heat, right? First of all, can I just say, shout out Mary from Wales for not only proving that the BBC is still utterly propaganda and redundant, but also admirably doing a TikTok live stream from Glastonbury when the BBC took a political decision. And a little bit more about Mary later, but she is my hero, heroine, whatever you want to call her, of the day, of the week. Oh, yes, indeed. And good morning, writer Sarah Newlin. Hello, Sarah. I have received your muggy mug, here it is. And Sarah is from the Critically Thinking blog. She's been on with us before for reviews, and she will be back on again as well. Lovely mug, thank you. My first glug of there you go. And how are you all? And waiting for my Monday morning dose of truth, Ross, it's here. Boom. Yes, it is indeed. And Armand, I saw your comment. God love you, darling. Armand is losing his left foot tomorrow morning. Bless you. Amputation. That's just, I don't even know what to say other than send you a massive hug and lots of love. And I hope you're all right, mate. Terrible stuff. Sarah is listening live to the show. Thank you so much. Thank you, Blue Nomad. Oh, let me talk to you in a second about the response to Friday's show. It's been phenomenal. And Sarah also made a comment in the chat, and I think she's also sent an email. I haven't seen them properly yet, but just been notified that the chat and the emails all link up. Anyway, Sarah wants me to do something about water companies forcing people to have meters. I know the problem, Sarah. I do indeed. And yes, I will happily do something on that. And just talking about heat, of course, we've been presented with, oh my God, just looking at that on the headlines terrifies me. Look at that blood red. Look at it. Heat bomb explodes in Europe. England could hit a record temperature for June on Monday as continent swelters in 42 centigrade heat dome. Yeah. And it's, yes, just in answer to that, yes, absolutely, to Kate Shemirani, not today, but yes. Deadly heat dome. So we are supposed to be terrified looking at that. We absolutely are. And I don't mind a bit of heat for a little while. What's the issue? Seriously, what is the issue? I don't get it, right? This is just scary weather map time. And they said that there's going to be record highs in Spain, in Portugal, in England, in France, in Italy, you name it. That's what they reckon. So we shall see. Either way, I'm grateful to the sun, and I don't want it covered or dimmed. There you go. And just to say, the timing and response to the piece on Zionist occupation in the UK on Friday was absolutely validated by the response to what happened at Glastonbury over the weekend. And I want to thank you all. We've had over 100,000 views across platforms for Friday's show about how Zionism has infiltrated our government, our media, our law. One viewer wrote, Sonia, your segment on the Israeli lobby couldn't have been better timed in the wake of the sheer amount of heart attacks we're seeing from the MSM today, re Glastonbury, and of course the pressure being exerted from the Israeli embassy and general lobby in Britain. I'm so grateful for all your wonderful messages. And generally, when I do something for like a particular individual piece, you can get maybe 5-10 emails about it. Over 50 for this one, with people just going, thank God somebody has said this. Thank you for putting it all together. And thank you to all the people who enabled my research, which I already talked about, Al Jazeera, Declassified, etc. And there's loads of great people online who are fighting the good fight. And before we bring in our first guest, I want to talk about Glastonbury, because Glastonbury has kicked off so much, right? Well, cat among the pigeons. So this weekend, we have absolutely seen who's who. So let's work through this. Glastonbury, first of all, has always been political, right? It's always been political. That's just the way it's always been. And the big issue was this man. And Bobby Villain, actually, he's a duo. They're both called Bobby Villain, but the whole act is also called Bobby Villain. You don't have to like him. You can absolutely hate everything about him, right? But what he said was the truth. What he said was the truth. I don't listen. Since when has violent talk been worse than violent actions? Because that's what we're being made to believe by the likes of like Rupert Lowe and Julia Hartley-Brewer. These are all Zionists. They've all been captured. Somebody asked me about Rupert Lowe because I didn't mention him on Friday, but his output this weekend really tells me everything I need to know about that man, and I will be talking about him soon. So what happened was the BBC decided not to show Kneecap. That's what they decided to do after all the hoo-ha and people like Kemi Badenoch saying, oh, don't show it. They decided not to show Kneecap, who proved to be one of the biggest pulling acts over the weekend. And they had to actually close off the area an hour before the guys even took to the stage because so many people wanted to see them. And so what happened was the BBC pulled the live feed, wouldn't show them, and then instead ended up showing Bobby Villain, who said 3 trillion times more stuff than Kneecap often say. And the fact is, the BBC and their controllers lost control on the day. And the reason they did is because people power happened. And this is brilliant Helen from Wales. And I love her without even knowing her. She is everything that I think is really good in people power. And what happened was the BBC and the controllers, they said, no, we're not showing Kneecap. And so this woman held her phone for over an hour as she live streamed the whole thing onto TikTok. And what's even more incredible is she got more views than the BBC were getting for Glastonbury. This is people power. It's over. Defund the BBC for a multitude of reasons. Defund them. And I think that our public service broadcaster is not serving the public. So it will be replaced by individuals who can harness the power of the internet. And Helen is one of them. And props to you, Helen. Don't know you, but love you. Absolutely. And also legacy media absolutely lied about what the performer said. He didn't say death to Israelis. That's outrageous. He said death to the IDF, which is a completely different scenario altogether. So I actually think he's got a case there for defamation. And the least that the Daily Mail, or the Mail on Sunday rather, can do, because they are two different entities, believe it or not, but the least that the Mail on Sunday can do, Scottish and English editions, is apologise, retract and compensate him. There were no chance of death to Israelis. That's outrageous, absolutely outrageous. Glastonbury came out, a joint post from Glastonbury Festival and organizer Emily Avis on Sunday. Evis rather said the event stood against all forms of war and terrorism, and that with almost 4,000 performances on site, there will inevitably be artists and speakers appearing on our stages whose views we do not share. The BBC went on to say it was the stuff from Bobby Villain was deeply offensive, adding it had issued a warning on screen about very strong and discriminatory language. And many people said Bobby Villan is a psyop. Well, maybe Bobby Villan is, but the point still remains, and that is, psyop or not, he was saying something that revealed even more Zionists in our midst, and traitors they are. They're traitors. Yes, indeed they are. And as I said on social media, I cannot vouch for this individual act. I don't know them. I've never heard of them before. Never heard of them before. I'm not investing in him or them, but rather pointing out that noticing something is happening, even problematically worded, should not distract people from what is really happening. And what is really happening is a genocide in Gaza, as we all know. I will shortly be bringing in Godfrey Bloom, who will talk us through so much that I'm very much looking forward to. And the selective outrage is really quite disgusting. Rupert Lowe, I'm so bored of Rupert Lowe now. He's a popularist. He jumps on any bandwagon so long as it involves giving Muslims a good kicking. And now he's written to the BBC, and he now wants Glastonbury, kind of monitored, if in fact not even ever screened again. This is the same man who said, we must defend free speech passionately, unapologetically, and proudly, not just when it's easy or popular, but when it's comfortable, controversial, and under attack. He said, we must be free to offend anyone, including Muslims, but not Zionists, Rupert? He's a sellout. I don't trust him. Not at all. Not at all. And shout out to Claire Wills Harrison on X, who has been doing some cracking tweets about the infiltrators amongst us. And I feel forced to quote what Claire said. I'm utterly convinced that a high number of prominent accounts speaking out against lockdown, etc., were installed and allowed for this time now. Many became trusted voices, but they now peddle so much regime stuff and walk people into giving up rights that it's scary. There's people online yesterday who were apparently part of the pushback against lockdown who were calling for digital ID. It's absolute madness what we're dealing with, absolute madness. And evidently, Rupert Lowe said the event was not what it was. You don't know what it was. The event is exactly what it was. Sit down, Rupert. You think the world is X. You are spouting rot. Glastonbury has always been political, and you need to redirect yourself, because at the moment you're all over the place, mate, and you're trying to be everything to everybody, except, of course, Zionists. I mean, like the Zionism screaming out of you is outrageous. And I've become even more radicalized this weekend. Oh, yes, I have, especially when I see that they doxed this Bob Villan's children. Absolutely disgusting. And the US are now looking to revoke visas for Bob Villan. Tells you everything you need to know, right? Tells you everything you need to know. And the reality is the IDF are genocidal maniacs and murderers. And I don't actually, the whole thing of British soldiers going over to fight for IDF and coming back. No, actually, I think we should stop it, because let's apply the same rules that we applied to Shamima Begum as one example. I don't want terrorists here, and I consider them terrorists. Simple stuff. Right. I want to bring in my first guest. A very knowledgeable individual, very popular around here. And I think that it follows on very neatly from what I've been saying. So let's bring him in now. Here he is. Good morning, Godfrey Bloom. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. A little bit hot here at the moment.
It is a bit hot, aren't you? For those who don't know, and why ever not, Godfrey is a former MEP, a former banker. He's a military speaker. He's a military lecturer. He's a political commentator. He's many things, and he's very popular around here. And God, as you've been watching developments on the world stage regarding Israel, Palestine, and Iran, and you have much to say, not only about the origin of the conflict, but where we are at this moment in time. And you can feel free to start off wherever you feel most comfortable, because you're that kind of guest that I trust you to direct your own course. Where would you like to start on this?
Well, I thought I'd like to start a little bit anecdotally, if I may. I'd like to take the United States of Wyoming, which, as you know, is a very rural state. It's a sort of cowboy state, and I know it reasonably well. And there was a I wasn't at the rally, but I heard it from a very reliable source, that going back about 2 or 3 years now, there was a Republican rally, and somebody stood up from the floor and asked what I thought was an extremely reasonable question, which was, why does the United States have to follow absolutely every piece of foreign policy which is laid out by Israel, which I thought was a very reasonable question. He was quickly frog-marched out of the room for being anti-Semitic. So he had to leave. I made some observations about a Jewish bank about 4 years ago, and its politicization, and it was very, very mild. It was very mild. I got hate emails from all over the world, thousands. It was quoted out of context completely by a magazine, The New Statesman, so on and so forth. People will not understand just how impossible it is to criticize Zionism. It is impossible because, first of all, they run legacy media.
Yep.
They run banks, all the massive banks. They run BlackRock, which is the biggest investment company in the world. So they run everything, and you cannot say anything without the world and his wife coming down on you for being anti-Semitic. Now, let me just explain a little about being anti-Semitic. Zionism is not the same as Judaism. So Zionists, broadly speaking, are relatively secular. They believe in Israel as a state, as an Israeli state. It's not. These people are not very nice people, as it's been proved by the genocide in Gaza. They are evil people. They are not even endemic to that part of the world, the Middle East, or what was historically potentially Israel, or Israelite, if you will. They've all changed their name. Netanyahu, whose name is not Netanyahu at all. No prime ministers of Israel have kept their name. They've tried to Middle Easternize it, if that isn't a funny word. I've just got, excuse me, going down here. Netanyahu was a Pole. He's Polish. His real name is Milosevsky. And you could go back to all the Israeli prime ministers since the 1948. They've all changed their name to make it sound they're inventing their own history. They're inventing it in much the same way that one might argue that Sir Walter Scott invented a lot of Scottish history in a very romantic and rather nice way. But a lot of it's conjecture, so on and so forth. And if you go back 5,000 years, which the Zionists like to do, you'll find that genetically they are Canaanites, if you go right back to that. Right. You've got all sorts of different kinds of Jews. You've got Ashkenazi Jews. You have Orthodox Jews, so on and so forth. So out of this tribe comes many sub-tribes, and they don't agree with each other. So one of the biggest spokesmen at the moment at the America, as your viewers probably know, and as you probably know, is Max Blumenthal. Now, he's Jewish and is absolutely horrified about what's going on in Gaza. So what we need to do is get away from this silly business about anti-Semitic.
Yes.
Palestinians themselves are Semitic. They are Semitic. So
exactly that. I want to take you back a little bit, actually, because exactly that. I think the world has changed, like literally this weekend. It's insane what you're saying about how they came after you a few years ago when you were speaking out. The world appears to have suddenly woken up, and people are actually very openly saying Judaism is not Zionism. Do not conflate the two. In fact, actually doing that has been proven to be anti-Semitic in its own right. So let's go back, Goddard, because your understanding of history is finer than mine. And first of all, Professor David Miller in the UK, he proved that holding anti-Zionism views are worthy of respect in a democratic society. So we are allowed to criticize Zionism in the UK, even if, as you say, our media is captured, our bankers are captured, our government is captured, they're all captured, but things are changing. So take us back to who were the original Semites and why are they really more entitled to Israel/Palestine than the American and European settlers?
Well, nobody is entitled to anything if you're going back for thousands and thousands of years. So let's take an example. If you go back and look at DNA, modern DNA techniques, you'll find that there is no serious claim to what is modern day Israel than anybody else. Which is why, of course, it's interesting, is it not, that DNA investigation is illegal in Israel, because it would disprove the whole invented game. So they've invented this ridiculous story that 5,000 years ago that they are entitled to be able to behave in the manner which they're behaving in Gaza. And it's expansionist, and the Zionists are very expansionist. We can see from the size, from going from the idea of the Balfour Declaration, which was instigated by A.J. Balfour and, of course, Rothschild, one of the major bankers. And because if you read that declaration, which nobody seems to be bothered to do, including the students at Cambridge University who desecrated the statue there, if you actually read the declaration, it was very, very implicit and clear that it did not mean the displacement of anybody else who was living in that part of the world. It did not give them any form of priority. And if you look at the clips or what film clips there are in the 1920s and 1930s, you had Arabs, Islamist Arabs, Arab Jews, Palestinian Jews, and Palestinian Christians all getting on perfectly well together. And it was the same in Baghdad, incidentally. If you see the clips from the late 1950s, everybody getting on very well together, and Damascus. Now, these things are now stirred up. Nearly everything you track everything down, you track it down to the United States, the industrial military complex, and these very, very bad men who want permanent war. And it's permanent war. It doesn't matter whether it's Iraq, the Ukraine, Israel. So it goes on and so it goes on. These very bad people. And of course, at the root of this is money. And of course, you never quite know whether the tail is wagging the dog. It seems to me that the Americans will do whatever the Jewish lobby wants. And of course, you're dealing with a group of people internationally who control so much. So you're looking at the control of Hollywood, you're looking at the control of banking, you're looking at the control of politics. The entire United States Senate is owned by Friends of Israel. I mean, it's owned, and they pay. And it's the same, of course, with our parliament. And at the end of the day, it's all about money. And money talks louder than anything else. And you make the observation about Rupert Lowe, I'm afraid I was a bit of a fan of up until about 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And he's just like the bloody rest.
It really
and
is.
you can bet your bottom dollar it'll be money, because they're the ones that control the money. And this is the problem that you have. And they can buy influence. And if they own the banks, they own legacy media, and they own everything else, even though they are very few in number, they can control everything. And of course, if most people, unlike your subscribers who watch, who are very much more informed and more intelligent than most, as indeed I would suggest mine are on my channel, your average person who sits in his parlor watching BBC, Sky or Channel 4 only knows what he's told by people who are in the pay. Right. Now, what I think is interesting at the moment is that seems to me to be a bit of a change, because if you look now at the younger Jews in America, for example, are beginning to come out against the barbarity of the IDF, who are very, very nasty people. Why aren't we allowed to? Why aren't we allowed to investigate the conditions in Israeli prisons where thousands of Palestinians are kept? They have a concentration camp. There's no point in calling it anything else. It's a concentration camp in Gaza. We're not allowed access. They've killed scores of journalists who've been trying to find out the truth in Gaza. They've even killed people trying to bring relief in food and medicine supplies. These people are very bad people. And so why, one asks himself, if you look at the concept of Zionism, Zionism is God's chosen people, that they are chosen people. And that's what the Zionists believe. They actually believe in a master race. Where did we hear that before?
Right.
Why would Cameron and Boris Johnson claim to be Zionists? Right. Why would they do that? Do they not understand the concept of a master race? And that's what it's all about.
Oh, they understand perfectly. They understand perfectly. Let me show you this. Tell me your thoughts when you see this image. If you can see this on your screen, I think you can, can't you?
That is the expansion that we have seen in Israel of the Israel cert from 1918. Now they dispute that because they would argue that some of that is desert in unworkable land, so on and so forth. So your Zionists tell you that that isn't actually the real case, although it's the case as far as borders are concerned. But that's like saying that a foreign power could take over Scotland because a lot of it's moorland and unfarmable. Or parts of the north of England or parts of Wales. That doesn't follow. You can't make that argument just because it doesn't look particularly attractive like the Falklands was from a farming perspective or an agricultural perspective. So that is expansionism. And of course, if we look to the map, we see the same thing, the expansion of NATO, the expansion of American bases. 250 overseas American bases with hundreds of thousands of overseas personnel. If you want to find out why we are living in a society of permanent warfare all the time, you could trace it back to the United States, the neocons, the industrial complex, and people who want an eye to the main chance, like BlackRock. The new chancellor, for example, of Germany is ex-BlackRock. The previous prime minister of this country was ex-Goldman Sachs. You've got to understand, people have to understand who controls the levers of power. And criticism of Zionism or Israel is simply verboten. It's verboten. But I think people, including many, many Jews, I count one or two amongst my friends, are equally horrified by this behavior.
Yes, exactly, because we know that Zionism is not restricted to Jews. It's all over the world. I talked on Friday, I did an extensive piece about Zionism, and I've met Zionists from all over the world. We see them even here. So talk to me about what has been recently happening in terms of Iran. Could you foresee all of this taking place and the backing of the US and Israel taking these preemptive strikes when they were all supposed to be at the negotiating table? What were your thoughts about that?
Well, of course, Iran or Persia, call it whatever you like, has been exploited by the West for well over 100 years, and it's all about oil. And it was largely exploited, of course, by the British Empire, who wanted access to the oil and resources. And a lot of wars are often based on resources. And Iran has resources. And so what the United States, and before that the British Empire, they wanted to degrade the independence of Iran so that they could take the resources. It's exactly the same, of course, for Ukraine. It's resources. It's very rich in resources. And it's the same with the Russian Federation. You have to geld these companies so that people like BlackRock, Vanguard, and Bill Gates, and all the other riffraff of society can exploit it all. And so this is really what it's all about. Now, what is extraordinary, and I find extraordinary, because obviously, as you know, I'm a geomilitary analyst and RCDS trained in these matters. Iran. They were so patient. They had their embassies blown up. They had senior diplomats and generals murdered. And this went on. This has been going on for some years. Now, what the Israel want to do, they want to bring in the Americans to have a big war with Iran and crush Iran so they can expand even further and get the resources, because Israel does not have the resources that Iran has in the terms of oil and gas and so on and so forth. That's what they want. So it's about money and resources, as these things always are.
What about regime change? Is it also about regime change?
Totally. It's 100% about regime change. It's the same with the Ukraine, which they did by a coup. It's the same with the Russian Federation. You have to have a vassal state of the United States, and by de facto, if not de jure, the Israeli state, which is an expansionist state. Now, where they made the mistake, and I don't know how they made this, they seem to have totally misread the military ability of Iran. It's not the Iran of 40 years ago. They are very highly sophisticated. They have very sophisticated hypersonic weapons, and they've been very patient. And the strike, the strike they did, unwarned strike, and then again, when actually they were at the table, the peace table, they were negotiating peace, and then the Israelis struck again out of the blue. And of course, we know that President Trump was totally complicit in all this. So you can't trust the United States, you can't trust the Israelis, you can't trust the British government. Why are we interfering in the Ukraine and Israel from our base Akatiri in Cyprus? It's all going on from there. We're viewing all these things from Cyprus. We have people on the ground, so on and so forth. And of course, what's actually happened now is Iran has turned around and given the Israelis a bloody good hiding. And it's about bloody time they got a good hiding. Perhaps they'll start to behave themselves. Perhaps they'll start to work with international law, which Israel and the United States think they could simply abandon international law. I know it's not perfect. International law is not perfect, but it's a start, isn't it?
It has to be. We have to have some kind of framework that we have to. Otherwise, we're completely uncivilized. But what this has shown is, and going back to the money thing, and I just need to point out, of course, we have absolutely no proof whatsoever that Rupert Lowe has taken any financial incentives whatsoever. But we do know that a lot of the lobby is very much financial. We know that because what I covered on Friday, as one example, was how many Labour MPs, how many Conservative MPs have received money from Friends of Israel. We know that. And then Richard Tice, the so-called alternative party, also come out batting, although they haven't yet formed their own Friends of Israel for Reform. But we know it's all entirely captured. But the thing is, I actually see a breakthrough taking place here. I don't think I've ever seen a time, Godfrey, because one of the things that I said on Friday that I realized as I was talking was I myself, not in Gaza, not in Palestine, but we've had Israel all day, every day for much of my life. Their issues have become my issues, and I'm sick of that. And I really feel that we're starting to, it's almost like people are waking up to such an extent and saying, this is not our issue. This is not our problem. We've been infiltrated. And I think that in itself is a cause for celebration. Or do you think I'm being too optimistic?
No, I think you're right. It's a very slow beginning and it's very hesitant beginning. But I think it's going to come. My hunch, and it's only a hunch, is that it will come from younger Jews in the West, which is where most of them are. America, they went to America, they spread and they work in all over the world, but particularly America, which is where the power bases are. I think that's now becoming when you have young Jewish actors and actresses coming out and saying, this is disgraceful, I don't want to be a part of it, not in my name, if you will. I think that could be a groundswell of opinion, and people might then, politicians, be a little bit more. It's very intimidating, if you criticize Israel, if you're elected politician, that you've lost legacy media immediately. And I don't think this has anything to do with Rupert Lowe's money. He's a rich man in his own right.
Yes.
But he did say last week, and I criticized him on X for it, he said, I'm more interested in my constituency than Gaza. Now, how an intelligent, well-educated man can say, I'm ignoring genocide in Gaza because I'm worried about the new pier they're going to build in Yarmouth. I'm worried about the new car parks in Gama. What kind of stupid statement is that from a man who we know is intelligent? So what's going on behind the scenes? What did the leadership of Reform say the other day? Say they're in favor of regime change in Iran. Nigel Farage. What does he know about it?
Right.
What does he know about it?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Listen, this is why I was so happy. I think the timing of you coming on today could not be more than perfect, because you are literally an example of a former member of parliament who has always stood to be counted. I wonder if I can bring in this image. I just clicked a quick image of you this morning. I wonder if I could just bring it in when you were in parliament, because the thing is, you have always stood up to be counted. And I think we see so little of it. We've all lost faith in politicians. I said to you the last time, this is where you're giving them some bollocking or another, Godders, about their nonsense, right? And you never shied away from that. So did it never concern you as a politician that you would lose favor by speaking out the way you did against Israel and against Zionism?
Well, not really. First of all, you can't buy me, and that's not because I'm a saint, as my wife
got you.
We have a small holding in Yorkshire, and frankly, I don't give a shit. I've got enough money, not plenty, but I've got enough money of my own. I don't need to kowtow to anybody else. And I'm not suggesting there aren't Islamic states with serious problems as well.
Right.
But I cannot stand by. I cannot stand by and see the mass murder of women and children in Gaza and not raise an objection. It's more than I could possibly do, in any more than I was on a train, old man as I am, just last year, and a woman's being intimidated by a nasty semi-drunken bloke, and I had to give him a wee slap. I couldn't sit by and watch that happen because I couldn't live with myself.
Right.
We've all got to stand up, and I wish to God we had a free press. And I've said this on your channel before. We have no free press, so we can't wait for the BBC to do anything, or Sky, or Channel 4, because they all piss in the same pot.
They do. They do. But I actually think things are changing. So what do you think is the situation where we're at now? Because last week, everybody was like, we're on a knife edge. It's World War III anytime now. We're just, we all seem to be waiting for Donald Trump to say the next thing. And he says mad stuff all the time. So where are we, do you think, about in terms of like another world war? Is that likely?
Well, I don't think so. I'll tell you why. We have virtually no army to speak of. We have a totally out-of-date Air Force. We see that the United States, with all their trillions of dollars they pump into it, their kit doesn't work. They have a decadent, tired society, so they can't conscript. We hear about conscription in Germany, conscription in this country. And the kids today, they don't want to go, and they haven't got the wherewithal to do it. We don't live in a disciplined society, so you can't make soldiers out of these people. Plus the fact, of course, that we know that the Russian Federation have these Oreshnik missiles, which travel at 12,000 miles an hour, to which you cannot defend yourself. You cannot defend yourself. So it's a no-win game. So even the morons that run our country and run America cannot start a world war because we have no defense. And of course, the first side of that was Israel with their Iron Dome, which has been completely obliterated. You can't defend against this stuff. So a world war is so crazy by anybody's standards. I think it will have to be avoided. But then when sometimes you listen to Trump and the Chancellor of Germany and that idiot we've got in number 10 Downing Street, they're capable of doing anything because they're so stupid.
They're so weak. I got to read you Ray J's comment. It completely supports this. Says that's why our politicians are the weakest in our history. I don't know whether that's true or not, but they are weak. And he says integrity doesn't exist with them anymore. I mean, you again have a better overview and understanding of political history than I do. Are we actually dealing with a particularly weak kind of input of politicians these days, or has it always been ever thus?
I would suggest that it's been, my own theory on this is that our politicians have been weak and hopeless and corrupt since the days of Lord Salisbury. I think he was the last old-fashioned conservative who actually stood foursquare for something, whether you agreed with it or not. He was a proper chap. Lord Palmerston had a very moral dimension, even within his gunboat diplomacy, so on and so forth. The people that we have today they're cut from a different cloth.
They're careerists.
Yeah, they're career politicians, of course, which is something that we've always had to an extent, but never to the extent that we have now. These are just shallow and bad people. I mean, you could do no worse than flick up pictures of Cameron, Theresa May, and Boris Johnson. Just show pictures of them. You can just look at their faces and see how bad and weak and awful these people are.
Yes. Exactly. DJ Markson says, God is dropping the truth bombs always, which is what we love. Absolutely. God, yes, lenticular cloud, he is principled, and it's important to be principled because we're seeing how people are just exchanging their principles for easy cash and influence, and it's repugnant. And Steve Miller says he's great. We need more straight talkers. We do. And you really should be absolutely on Good Morning Britain and all over legacy media, but you are too much of a threat to the existing order. So in its own right, Godders, it is a compliment because they can't handle you. They can't handle the truth. And you are not only principled, but you're one of those people. I find you to be fairly fearless, actually. Do you feel fear at all?
The only fear I've ever felt in my life is the sight of Mrs. Bloom with a rolling pin in her hand when I have transgressed.
They've infiltrated everything, says the Blue Nomad. Goddess, just, before you leave us today, I would love you to give us just some sort of overview of what you think that perhaps we can expect next on the world stage regarding this, because clearly the whole Zionist structure has been challenged like never before. It's all out in the open now. It's transparent. These people are exposed. Where could we go next in order to start rebuilding our world? We need to heal.
I would say, although I didn't agree with them at the time, our young people in our universities, they need to come out with some morals and some ethics like they did in the 60s and take an interest.
Right.
And I think that could be coming. And I think that's beginning to start now just a little bit in the American universities. And quite some big cheers when I see at Oxford, and I've spoken at the Oxford Union, Cambridge Union, I'm seeing to see some big cheers come from people there. Funnily enough, some Israelis themselves, with a theme of "not in my name," getting big cheers now. It's not for old geezers like me at 75. It's for the youngsters. It's for the next generation, the 21, 22-year-olds, to take to the streets and start saying "not in my name."
And they are, and like in America, they're getting deported for doing that. They are like being, kidnapped from campus for daring to speak out against the regime. And so, as you've already said, absolutely captured. The whole thing is, and I do worry what they're going to do next in the UK. But can I just say, oh, geezer, no, you are absolutely essential to this, because we need people with your understanding, the richness of your knowledge that you bring to the table. So youth is all great, and we love that. We love that energy, but we do need your knowledge, Goddess. Do not underestimate your role in this. And it's almost like your time has come, mate. Your time has come. It's like what you said was outsider stuff back then, but now people are able to see that you are ahead of the curve. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I want to thank you for that, for being so brave and being prepared to put your head above the parapet. Everybody, this is the remarkable Godfrey Bloom, and that's why I bring him back, because I love him. I love him, love him. Take good care of yourself. Have a good week, Goddess.
Thank you so much.
Lovely to see you. Take care. Wonderful, wonderful man. And he's bold. He's bold. And the thing is, even people who are well-heeled and have money still won't speak out. And I just love the fact that he will. Yes, I do. And how are your comments? Remarkable. Yes, thank you. Thank you. You're always welcome here, Godfrey, says Merv. Absolutely is. Thank you, Godfrey, says Randy. Good man, Goddess, says Sentanti. Thank you so much, Goddess, says Jackie. And on and on. Absolutely it is. Thank you, Godfrey, says Sally, and Sunplug, and all of them as they go. Cheers, Godfrey, you legend, says Jacqueline Watt. He is. He stand firm. Yes, Ian, indeed. And he does, doesn't he? We do love Godfrey, SMG. We do. I definitely do. I've got an absolute soft spot for him. Before I bring in our next guest, he is knowledgeable, and that's what's important. And, as anybody around here knows, I do not claim to know it all. That's why I bring on knowledgeable people who can educate me. And I really welcomed him today, because we've seen so much shite over the weekend. Absolutely, we're drowning in it, but we are emerging. We are emerging from the Zionist cloud, and I think it feels wonderful. I want to talk briefly about this lady and her daughter and the savaging of Kate Shemirani. It's continued, and it's absolutely vile. We talked about it briefly last Monday, because the Panorama program was coming out, which featured her sons and Paloma, her daughter, who died, Paloma's ex-boyfriend. And this is some horrible, stinking, grubby stuff. I've been in touch with Kate. I briefly talked to her in inboxes, and she is absolutely welcome on here. But we have to work out how we're going to go about it, for both legal and censorship reasons, because some of the stuff that she has to say will be absolutely contrary to YouTube's medical misinformation policy. So I have to be careful there. And again, going back to what we've talked about before, is I need as many people as possible to sign up to my Rumble channel, because there's only so much that I can say on YouTube. And don't get me wrong, I actually love being on YouTube. I really do enjoy it. And I think that is a great platform, but there is a problem with the censorship that takes place. But the reality is most people would prefer to watch me on YouTube than pretty much anywhere else. Although we can get thousands and thousands of views on X, so pretty big on there. And yes, Jackie, you signed up, right? And Rolo, it's some horrible, disgusting stuff. And the BBC and all the pro-vax ghouls absolutely love this savaging. Then The Sun made a video, and then you have people like Dr. Liz O'Riordan, who did an article in the Mail on Sunday, who is willing to capitalize on Paloma, Kate's daughter's death. My truly terrifying encounter with the charlatans peddling alternative cancer therapies that cost young women like Paloma their lives. You just traded on the death of a young woman. You're unconscionable, Dr. Liz O'Riordan. And Kate said that she had defamed her. Kate has been spitting out hard facts all week to do with Paloma. Kate completely refutes what the BBC have said, of course, because the BBC is a dirty, disgusting, stinking broadcaster that lies. And Mariana Spring is almost certainly a plant. But it is shocking, horrific stuff that has been said about this woman. This is a family in grief. It's been exploited. These people really disgust me. And I note what Francis O'Neill said. Francis O'Neill, of course, is a commentator who's been on Wake Up before and will be back again. And he said about Kate Shemirani's son, Sebastian, who then came out after appearing in the BBC Panorama, then came out and made a video. Horrible stuff that is being said. And Francis noted some of the wording. God, it's moments like this. I wish our dear Peter Hyatt was with us so he could really unpack what's being said. But Francis said Sebastian introduces the term conspiracy theory abusers for a, quote, brand new type of serial killer that operates on social media. A, quote, monster enabled by modern technology and our lack of regulation. And he proposes Paloma's law to protect vulnerable with international cooperation. I know what this sounds like to me, kids, and I think you do too as well. This is a hit job. Now, I don't personally know Kate. I know of her. I've talked to her briefly, and I'm absolutely going to interview her about this, but I'm in no doubt whatsoever this is a hit job. They went after her, and what the BBC and Mariana Spring have done, and ghouls like Dr. Liz O'Riordan, right? I consider these people ghouls to use the death of a young woman to flog their book. And what they are all doing clearly is they're all coming together, and it will all be used for some new law. Soon we won't be able to talk about anything. When I talk about how there's a problem with so-called medical misinformation on YouTube, they want to extend that all across. So you can't talk about it anywhere, any alternative cures. YouTube removed my film, The Business of Cancer. It's available on Rumble, I believe, and other platforms. But they removed it even though it was factual. It wasn't conspiracy theory. It was factual. I talked to people who were treating themselves, who had cancer, and stepped outside of the mainstream. Oh, yes, I agree. Right? I agree. We need a new internet, Shug. We do. Absolutely, we do. And yes, absolutely, Insurtech. Absolutely. The same ghouls who gave midazolam and morphine to old people. Absolutely the same ghouls. Yes, indeed. No, I'm not on Odyssey. Should I be on Odyssey? But tell me if I should, because if you watch it there, then we'll start uploading there. So I think this is egregious stuff. It's absolutely disgusting. It's capitalizing on the grief of a family. And these people truly disgust me, what they've done to this family. Truly disgust me. So hopefully I'll be talking to Kate soon, which will be deep, I should imagine, will be deep. And try not to be too alarmed by this, of course. Every phone in the UK is going to get an emergency alert warning very soon. There is a way to switch it off. It's not sinister at all, of course, is it? Thank you, Legacy Media. And what we're being told is emergency alerts are set to be rolled out later this year. And the idea is that it's to prepare us for a worst case scenario, including war. And we've been told to brace ourselves for an emergency alert, which will ping off mobile phones as part of government tests. And not off mine, it won't. Not off mine, it won't. Just turn it off. Right. If you don't know how, I will attempt to produce a handy guide, but I'll be able to tell you some of it now of what you can do immediately. If you have an Android, go to your phone settings, look for emergency alerts and turn off test alerts, exercise alerts, operator defined and operator alerts. And because emergency alerts may appear under a different name, you can also look for wireless emergency alerts or emergency broadcasts. And go to your settings, look for message and then message settings, followed by wireless emergency alerts and then alert. Alternatively, the switch off can be found under sounds and then advanced and then emergency broadcasters. So depending on your phone, there may be numerous ways how to turn it off, but turn it off you can. Yes, you can. And I loathe these things. Not only are they now giving us a long lead-in time, just this creates anxiety for people. They're like, for some people, it's like, when is that emergency alert going to go off? They're not even going to tell us a time or money now. And they will use it for the climate lockdown. Nobby, yes, they will, indeed. And I've got a Faraday pouch for mine. Have you? Good man. Oh, good, excellent point. M points out updates will switch them back on, so do not update. The last time I updated M, I absolutely regretted it. I updated on my iMac, and it was just an absolute mess. I don't do updates anymore. And Markson said, "Oh, just don't worry about it. No S is given." The problem is that you've obviously reached a place which is wonderful, where you don't worry about it, but some people do worry about it, and it's wrong. It's really wrong. Just turned off. Forgot last time, says Ben. The cops are a joke nowadays. I see. Where did that come from? Anxiety and fear is the aim. Exactly, Ray J. And that's what concerns me. That's what concerns me. What else? We've got, they're back in Parliament tomorrow talking about the welfare reforms. You know, the vote tomorrow in British Parliament. And if you ever needed any confirmation, which I'm sure you don't, that the Conservatives and Labour have always been in bed together when it comes to attacking sick and disabled, all you need to do is see the message, the public message from the Conservatives. This was before Keir Starmer had decided to keep things as they are for people who are already receiving certain benefits, including PIP. But the Conservatives tweeted, if Keir Starmer needs our support to pass his welfare bill, we will under 3 clear conditions: a commitment to properly reduce welfare spending, a commitment to getting people off benefits and into work, no new tax rises in the budget. Anyway, in the event, he poo-pooed them, went away. He said he was distracted by what was going on at the moment in terms of on the world stage before he was forced to do his U-turn on his welfare bill after actually rebellion from his MPs. In a piece in the Sunday Times, Keir said he was occupied with the G7 and NATO summits and the escalating tensions in the Middle East for much of the past 2 weeks. And his full attention really bore down on the welfare bill on Thursday, he added. So anyway, they're back in tomorrow. And the whole idea is that they want to fix the economy. The first thing they need to do, our politicians, what they need to do is they always turn on the most vulnerable amongst us. And obviously there will be a percentage who are swinging the lead. There is in every arena, but this is not the majority, and they know it. In fact, they make it incredibly hard for people to get PIP. And my dear departed brother, who worked all his life and paid an absolute fortune in tax when he needed it, when he had a kidney transplant and various other things, the issues that he had to go through to get assistance was absolutely appalling and disgusting. So I'm telling you, this is not some shindig that is taking place within our welfare system. And what our politicians need to do is they need to bring down, and they can do it. Oh, they can do it. They can bring down the cost of our living for a start. That's what they should be representing. They should be representing us in terms of our cost of living, in terms of our energy bills. They always tell us the same old crap, right? And that is, it is so extremely expensive. Well, how come every other European country is so much cheaper to live than in England and the UK? It's because our politicians have sold us out, because a lot of them are on boards and have directorships of these countries. So they are claiming on one hand to represent the electorate, but they are taking their financial kickbacks, quote unquote, with another hand. And that is what's taking place. We need to fix our situation whereby people don't need 2 and 3 jobs in order just to be able to pay their standard bills. These are the things politicians should be working on. Some people are stuck in the welfare trap and have been for families, some families for generations. And that is partly because sometimes it doesn't pay to work. It doesn't pay to work in the UK because our politicians sold us out to big business. And these are the realities that need fixing. And we shouldn't have situations where big employments like Tesco, for example, can also pay their workforce on like universal credit. No, that shouldn't happen. While you are reaping huge profits, there is absolutely no way on this earth that you should be topping up your employees' wages with money from the state. No way at all. And Shug refuses to contribute to the warmongers. Ross wants the peasants to revolt. It's wrong what takes place. And we need to stop. We need to stop this. You see, the problem is the electorate demands so very little, don't they? And I'm not the electorate per se, because there's nobody there that I can vote for. And when people go, well, you're part of the problem if you're not voting. No, you're part of the problem because you are voting. You're upholding an archaic, totalitarian, actually, frankly, demonic, satanic system half time that answer to other people, as we've seen. So you, the voter, are the problem. We need to sort you out. That's what I think about that. So yes, this attack on sick and disabled people is nothing new. They did it with David Cameron and George Osborne, and I absolutely hate it. And thank goodness that that Keir Starmer has, for whatever reason, and I don't trust any motivation that man has. Okay, just to be clear, absolutely, whatever the motivation is for him suddenly saying, okay, we're going to keep people on PIP the way they are, and any new applicants will then be subject to these different checks and balances. I don't trust him. They hate us. Never voted, said Vanessa. And got you. I do not consent. Ashby versus White, says Juicy Lucy. And Marco, about Glastonbury, I probably never have been a fan of Glastonbury. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here doing a big hoo-ha about Glastonbury, as I started off earlier, right? And I'm not a big fan of those kind of festivals, never have been. I mean, it's a pyramid stage, for goodness sake. A lot of it kind of speaks volumes. My point simply about Glastonbury is what took place this year is a lot of the people became very evident to us because they are, as I say, more concerned with people noticing that people are being killed than people actually being killed. So that's the problem. That is the problem. And one of those people, by the way, is the reprehensible Dan Wootton, who I mean, people know I can't bear him. I see Dan Wootton and I are on opposite ends of the table again. He's fighting for cancel culture. He's somebody, when I made that, I read the tweet from Claire Wills earlier. She didn't name Dan Wootton, but he's somebody that I think of about that. He tweeted, Glastonbury and the BBC can absolutely F off with their pathetic attempts to crawl back from this. You created the hard left, anti-Semitic environment. You broadcast it. You support the jailing of Lucy Connolly and Tommy Robinson. Now the world sees what you're really about. No, Wootton, the world is really seeing what you and your ilk are about. Oh, yes, they are. Oh, yes, they are. And I'm not about remigration, by the way, but if I had to be, I'd start with Dan Wootton. I'd park him off back to New Zealand. He is part of the drive to divide my country. It's not your country, Dan. Yeah? How does that feel? Seeing as you got in bed with the racists and the Zionists, right? You are part of a drive to divide my country. Okay? I reject you as a legitimate commentator. You are a propagandist, okay? You maintain the British establishment. You're part of a divisive agenda, and that is not good for the British people, okay? You are an immigrant, but in the eyes of many of the racists and the inbreds who follow you, you're the right sort of immigrant. But I'm here to tell you that you are very much the wrong sort of immigrant. You came to the UK, you're employed by Murdoch, you produce bile of biblical proportions against people who dared to be famous and successful. You are a media predator. Yes, you are a New Zealander who has contributed to the legacy media in my country being absolutely toxic and untrustworthy. And he produced this image last week, absolutely scandalous, of Lucy Connolly with a black eye. That is not a true image. Don't be producing images like that. So emotive, deliberately emotive. It is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. As Leo Biddle said in a tweet, and also actually has been having Leo Biddle, commentator, has conversations with Miri AF and Francis O'Neill. And Leo Biddle said, I see Lucy Connolly has joined the Black Eye Club. That or media palms off artificially generated images as news, and an emotionally responsive audience can't tell the difference and dutifully emotes. Well said, Leo. Well said indeed. So Dan Wootton, you already know. I've made videos about you, right? You already know. Dan, it is my opinion and my desire that you can F off. And when you get there, please F off again. There you go. Thank you. Smiley face. Okay, I want to very shortly bring in my next guest. Let me see if they're here, actually. Let me just check if they're here. I know one is. Oh, I think the other one is just popping up now. I'll bring them in any second. Let me just see if there's one more thing that I want to comment on before I bring them in. We're living through interesting times. And I think that what is really important is to be able to tell the difference between what is truly outrageous and wrong and what we are being selectively told that we can be outraged about. Well, they can spin, frankly. I think you all know my attitude on this. Right. I want to bring in my next guest. None of them are afraid of a bit of controversy, which is what I kind of like around here. I know you'll be surprised to hear that, peeps. Right. Let me just find where they are. I've got them here. Let's bring them in. It is Alistair Williams. Good morning, Alistair. How are you?
Good morning.
Good
Excellent,
morning.
Thank you.
Lovely, deep-throated. No, deep-throated is probably not the right word right around here. Okay, I've started off badly. Tanya's already laughing. Hello, Tanya. That just sounded way overly sexual, didn't it? Tanya Edwards, everybody. Alistair Williams, lovely people. The last time I saw Tanya was a few weeks ago because she was doing this incredible work with Bob Moran. You were like everybody at that exhibition, weren't you? You were involved in so many different aspects of it, and it was absolutely wonderful to see you. So congratulations on that, Tanya. Really congratulations.
Thank you for coming down, Sonia, because it would always be busy in the afternoon from about 12, even if we open 8 till 9. But the day after you did your interview, I literally opened the doors at 10, and it was never less than 20 or 30 people there all day.
Yes, we love that kind of stuff. Thank you for telling me that. That makes me happy, because the thing is, people like you, Bob, Alistair, you're out there, you're doing your own thing, and you need to be supported. You don't have the big machinery behind you. So we need to take care of each other. And that is the reality. If you're doing good, you're doing good. Both of you are people who spoke out during lockdown. It's so refreshing to see that you haven't been one of those weaselly worded people who are now in kind of like some sort of backtracking mode, who don't actually want to fight against the system. So talk to me, first of all, about you going on tour together and who and why this was decided. Who wants to pick that up?
Well, we've been doing, I'm going to interrupt, Alison, before you go. But we've been doing these shows at Top Secret now since last July in London, and they've been selling out consistently. I feel we've pretty much hammered London, but we're doing one more in September. And then everyone's been asking us to leave and go outside town, which I'm obviously always reluctant to do. But it is time, I think, to just see how many people are out there that really just want good stand-up as well. Not obviously lots of people are on our side and don't think that, the solutions are always, well, it's really bizarre, actually. I saw this a lot during the exhibition. There are people that are now looking for their views from the state. It doesn't really matter whether it's a business. I had a bizarre chat about Hamptons, my local estate agents, because we're selling our house. The Hamptons have got 3 windows of Pride I just don't think that's the most efficient way to sell a house. It's not to do with. I don't think that a corporation needs to recruit someone else's private life to sell stuff for a start. But I think it's interesting now. People don't feel confident even to take the mickey out of stuff as if it's putting them on a wrong foot. And that is the death of stand-up. Because if people are anxious about even making a quip, unless it's been endorsed by Waitrose, it's killing the clubs. So it's just fun just to not be working with somebody that wants to go to their local supermarket to find out what they can think before they write their material. So obviously it's good to work with Alistair. And then we're just going to go out of town and see how much of the local dialects I can comprehend, I suppose.
Yeah. Alistair, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, we've never done a tour. I've never done a tour. It's something that they keep sort of quite locked up to the Establishment Act, being able to go on tour. If you're not part of the establishment, they don't give you the rooms. They don't let you book them. It's been quite difficult for us to even get places that will let us in there and get the room. And I get a lot of people who are like, come to Glasgow, come to Manchester. Why aren't you in Manchester? So we tried to go to Manchester. They wouldn't give us the relevant rooms in Manchester. So, but Tanya's done really well. We've got some big old theatres up and down the country, some interesting venues as well.
I hope we've got some fans in Northampton, Alistair.
Yeah, we've got a massive venue in Northampton. Massive.
Really? Is that a joke? Are you being funny?
No, it's serious, Sonia.
No, it's huge.
I don't know much about geography. I just got us into places with which, were keen and had good deals, because if you're not working with a big company like Live Nation, you have to have a good deal. Otherwise, you can't afford to go on tour. But the Northampton venue, obviously, they don't open it all up at once. Northampton is a 937-seater. So I hope all your listeners are in Northampton.
Let's all get to Northampton. When are you in Northampton?
The 5th of September.
And when does it actually kick off?
The 5th of September in Northampton.
Oh, the first date is in Northampton. Got you.
Next day we're back in London, and then we're going to go. Where is it? Newcastle. That's big too. Newcastle, Glasgow, Ludlow, Southampton. And we'll add in some more. Yes.
Do you have any? Because both of you have been subject to the whole mad cancel culture nonsense, and obviously you've seen Bob's, show pulled and all different things. Horrible stuff. Do you have any of those concerns? Because none of you are PC. You're not part of the agenda, like you say. You're not taking talking points from the state. Do you have any concerns?
Well, the thing about Bob's show, the reason it was so amazing to do that show was because it was so big. And there was so much in it. He had live drawing, a live band. There was a serious tech team. So there were a lot of people dependent on that show. And it took 6 months to write. So when that was cancelled, it let down a lot of people. The composer, the session musicians, me, Bob, the tech team. Whereas Alistair and I are stand-ups. It's Alistair, me, microphone. If someone cancels us, we can just, plug in outside. It's much more low-key, and it's, we're not putting in the same kind of money it takes to put on a big theatre show. This is jokes. So, are you worried, Alistair? I'm not worried.
No, not at all.
I think it'll be exciting also, because you're doing it yourself. You're now going to get a chance to properly test the field and what's going on out there. And there is an appetite out there. But a lot of people say to me, that hardly anybody will go to their areas. And so that, again, they are subject to whatever the big organized agents are putting on. But I am interested to know. Yeah, go on.
Right. I take that with a pinch of salt, though, because you can go quite close to people's where they live, and they
still don't come out
unless it's in their local village hall. They still think you're far away.
You're right. You're right. And I just wonder, because everything has become so sanitized, and we're told now that Ricky Gervais is like the radical face of comedy. And I think both of you have made comments about that in the past. So are we talking about comedians? Are we given an absolute sanitized version of comedy now? Is there still a place for people to be cutting edge, do you think, in comedy?
It's awful what you're given now. It's absolutely awful what you're given now. It's terrible. Like the standard of, I almost think they're picking the ones that are terrible to put on the television now. They
are. But they're doing it on purpose because they are, because then it's firstly those people are much more reliant on their writing teams, and then you can you choose what they're going to say, and you choose it because you choose the writing. I worked on these writing teams, and even before, when I was a proper blue pill normie and writer on demand, I would write, not especially if someone wasn't from England and you're writing for them, I would write them a spec of how to look popular, and I'd explain, you have to not like this person, and you have to say that you would, that you prefer this political party, and you have to imply that you think this is a good idea. And I wasn't, obviously it was cynical, but I was just explaining to them how it worked so that they weren't caught off foot. If there were other jokes being told in the quiz and they didn't understand and they instinctively went to the wrong side, I just explained to them what the wrong side was so that they remained liked. And now, obviously, I can see that it's, the whole thing is a joke, but the fact that I don't think that comedy was ever really on television. It did if you wanted to slip on a banana skin or whatever, but actual stuff was always in basements. And when I started out, it was really dark. It was really good fun. It was outrageous, and promoters didn't care if someone really stank the room out if they liked them. They understood balance. They really were into comedy. It's only now that the people coming into stand-up are actually only going into it to try and get out of it. They're going into it because they want a presenting job, or because they want to do some acting, because they want to be in a soap opera. They're not doing it because they want to drink pints in basements with depressed men and say things that you can't say at the dinner table.
Yeah, I want to get back to the raw, because that's where the humor is, right? When anything is just kind of like unrehearsed and just more spontaneous. But I want to ask you both this. Actually, Alistair, I'm going to start with you. Do you have any concerns about AI and your profession?
No.
None at all.
I see the similarities between AI and Google. I remember when Google first came out and people were like, oh, you just ask this thing any question and it tells you the answer, and it tells you the truth, and it always gets it right. I don't see how it's that different from Google when it first came out. It starts out telling you, oh yeah, this is the thing, and then it starts lying to you, and then it starts hiding things, and it seems very similar to Google to me, the way it works. You sort of ask it to do this for you, and it sort of does it, and people think, oh, this is good, but really what it's doing is just making everyone lazy, But I don't think there's AI out there that can come up with a joke, I really don't. It doesn't have a soul. It's not human.
No.
It can save you time and mundane tasks, but I'm not worried. I'm not worried about that at all. Well,
I'm not sure though, because I don't think I don't think it can do anything. I think it's just the means of distributing stuff. But you can really deaden the imagination through this crap. And I think when I look at audiences, sometimes they have an almost Pavlovian response to generic rubbish. And that's the issue. It's not that. I think if anything, it's quite good for comedy, because if someone's still functioning and they're not over fluoridated, they can get stuff and they're relieved and delighted to hear something different. But I do think that a lot of people now have been so dumbed down that they just they can't get things. They're very sensitive and they're not intelligent. And it's not even because they're not naturally intelligent. It's because they're really putting in the time to diminish their natural abilities. So they don't need to come though. They don't need to come to Northampton. We have the smart ones.
Yes, they do. We've got 900 seats.
Yes, you've got 900 seats. I think my issue with AI, and I do have some concerns. So I did this thing. I clicked on a YouTube video of AI children who were like Trump and various other, and it was really, really funny. But now my entire YouTube stream is full of AI comedy, and it's like, okay, so I think
is that a thing?
It is a thing.
Comedy?
It actually is a thing. It's huge. It's massive. And growing bigger. And the thing is, it's not that it's necessarily funnier, but it's because I think, going back to what Tanya said, I think we're getting kind of like almost, I don't know if you use the word swamp, but I feel what's going to happen is we're going to have such a glut of all this AI stuff, whether it's comedy or writing or music or whatever. It will be pushed to the forefront ahead of us, real people. And those are one of my concerns, because I've literally just experienced that in real life. As I say, I clicked on one video and now all my recommendations are of baby Trumps and baby Vances. So concerning.
All it takes to kill that whole thing off though, Sonia, is for us to turn around this idea that the number of likes is an indication of quality. So it used to be that people understood that they were looking for the niche. Oh God, it's my singing washing machine. But hello, it's my tortoise is coming as well.
Wait. 2 seconds. You have a singing washing machine?
The washing machine's singing and the tortoise is bowled into the house. But
as you do. Right. So okay. Sorry, go on.
When I was growing up, people understood that if something was really, really good, not everybody could understand it or not everybody had found it. You know, there wasn't this absurd idea that the more mainstream and flavorless something was, the better it was. But people really fundamentally understood that. And now we're in an age of popularity, which is only literally dictated by algorithms upticking stuff. So, and I think we'll get to a point where the saturation that you're fearing will have such a huge number of likes that people will start to discern that is not real, that that's just an algorithm pushing a new thing.
Good
in the way
point.
That you're selling a pair of trainers, or you're selling a celebrity, or you're selling an idea of Musk and saving free speech by making a purchase. Once people understand that the quality is not associated with upticks, that whole thing will be irrelevant. One of the greatest writers I know, a woman called Candy Gigi, she did the best show I'd seen in Edinburgh ever. She was singing. It was dark. It was brilliant. It's about this Jewish housewife who goes mental. It was hilarious. And then in lockdown, she had a big run at Soho Theatre. And then in lockdown, she couldn't work, obviously, and she had a baby. So she started making TikTok videos. And she's making prank calls to John Lewis and stuff. And they're getting 6 million, 7 million likes. But she's essentially one of the greatest writers I've ever met. And she's now making prank calls about her vagina. And that's not her working at her best, in my humble opinion.
Right.
And at some point, people will remember that, and they'll just instinctively want to do good stuff again. Do you want to see my tortoise?
I want to see your tortoise, but I think that's a good point that I want Alistair to pick up, and that is how much are we as I had a tortoise when I was a child. Mine was called Slow Coach, not particularly original, I appreciate. How old is your tortoise?
He's actually 11 because we got him old, so he would be in the garden, but he just likes to come in and say hi. His name's Leonard, and he answers if you call him.
My God. Tanya has a tortoise called Leonard. Oh dear God. So just going back to my point, because I think this is an important one, because what you're really saying is that woman, who's a fantastic writer, has essentially been shaped by what people like. Okay. So Alistair, I think that is an interesting point to pick up. And that is that we as creators, content creators, as performers, whatever we are, how shaped are you by what your audience have told you they like over the last few years? And before you answer that, I want to just read out one comment about you, which was Alistair was a proper laugh over COVID, absolutely ripping the out of it for the con it was. And so you did that, okay? You absolutely did that. And you did the same with the people around it and the backtrackers and everything. But how are you, do you think, how over this period of time have you been shaped by audience demands and expectations?
Well, it's a good question. But the thing I would say as well is what people don't realize is how massaged the numbers are on what people really like. If you might go onto my YouTube channel after it's been censored and chopped in half and whatever, you might look at the views on my videos and go, oh, no one's particularly interested in this. But you might go on the establishment COVID positive channel and, oh, this is massive, everyone likes this. But they completely massage those numbers. They inflate the views of things that they want you to like, you know. So what you look at and you think, oh, this is really popular, probably really isn't, but they've just put a number in front of it to tell people it's popular. Likewise, when you look at something and you go, oh, no one's really interacted with this, that's because they sort of control all of that. The only way to really test if something's good is to actually engage with yourself and figure out, you know, do I like it or not? Because you're not getting the real figures on anything, likes, views, anything. You're not getting the real, they're telling you what's popular these days. And if they want something to be popular, then they put it everywhere, and 1,000 bots comment and go, "Oh, this is amazing." You know what I mean?
Story.
So,
and they just get rid of it. I had just an old stand-up piece on my YouTube channel. I'm not like Alistair. Alistair's been brilliant at doing stuff online. I've never done it. I never did a Zoom gig. I do sometimes I chat to you and I do a few podcasts, but really I don't do much online stuff. But after I did Apocalypse, my YouTube channel with my 2 stand-up clips, it disappeared. So that's all of your thousands and thousands of views and your thousands of likes. They all go, and it's an old clip, and so I obviously uploaded again, but then it looks like nobody's ever liked it or watched it. And that's what you send out to bookers that haven't seen you before. So now, instead of them thinking, 35,000 people have enjoyed this, they go, 300 people have seen it, and one of them thought it was all right.
Right.
That's not real. It's not true.
It's manipulated.
And
that's what we're dealing with. Yeah, that is what we're dealing with. That's what we're having to push back against, which is, it is fantastic. I actually feel an energy that I haven't felt probably in about 5 years, because what they did to us during C-19, I think, is still incalculable. We don't know the long-term impact of what has happened to us psychologically or our physical health. We simply don't. But I feel that a veil is lifting over so many people. I think that they lied to us so much during C-19. It became so transparent that even the most asleep are waking to what has taken place. And with the kind of acts that you have, I think you on the front line, you must see that more than most other people. No?
Well, definitely in the exhibition, I was amazed by how many people had understood what was going on after they'd gone along with it. And I mean, they'd taken the vaccine, they'd gone along with it for 2 years, 3 years, then they understood. And those people, if anything, are more right now, they're more attuned with the fact that the machine is a lie than the people that always knew it in the beginning and are hoping that some of it might now be self-correcting, or that the truth is now coming out, and don't really understand that that's being paced and measured. So they are more cynical, but obviously some of them are very ill. But I think that people are realizing now. I don't know though, it seems to be a double down. Alistair, what do you think? Because I'm seeing some people really doubling down into the idea that the state must be in charge of everything, and other people really turning away from it dramatically. I don't know what the numbers are like. What do you think the numbers are like?
I have a very niche view
on.
that. I think they're actually trying to expose their own beast New World Order system themselves. I think they're trying to get caught.
They are though. Look at consent system.
Problem, reaction, solution. I think the whole New World Order, the whole deep state, the whole this thing, I think they're slowly revealing it so that then they can fully reveal it, and then they're going to give you the solution to it, and that's the thing to be afraid of, So I think it's quite niche. I don't know many people that
no, I know people who do think like that, because it is absolutely evident that, as one example, some of Trump's tweets, they are not normal. They're not regular. They're clearly saying something about things that are taking place and happening that is not just standard government business. So I think lots of things like that are taking place as well. I think that the awareness that is taking place is actually phenomenal. But then we are also in danger of being, you in particular, actually going out there on the road, you're in danger of having to become part of the system in order to be able to just function. Because one of the things that you said to me, Tanya, was about the whole issue of QR codes versus cash as one example. So that already pulls you into the system, whether you like it or not. How is that for you going out there?
Well, it's absolutely a problem. If you even look at the people that were supposed to be on our side, I obviously don't believe these characters were ever on our side, but I'm talking about other people. So Kennedy Jr. or Musk apparently being in favor of health or free speech. These people are not. They're in favor of the mark of the beast. They're pushing wearables. They're pushing absurd narratives. They're pushing digital surveillance. So if you see that the end point is essentially having us all in one centralized system where our physical movement, our transactions, our whole freedom of choice, and I don't mean that in some absurd way, I mean it in our capacity to make decisions about our own movement and thought processes, we won't be able to access information or go to visit places in real time without participating in the system. Now, I won't be participating in it, but I can see incrementally, even now, QR codes in clubs, not being able to use your cash at the bar. There is no alternative but to be in those places unless you want to be in a field. And even in a field now, those fields have also got QR codes to get into. You're looking at even the festivals, or even something like the Winter Wonderland. You always had at fun fairs, cash at fun fairs. People who run fun fairs were at the very periphery, deliberately so. That's where they live, on the periphery of society, going from place to place with their fun fair. Even these fun fairs are now, really card orientated. The Hyde Park one you can't get into without all this QR rubbish. So they are going to the fringes. They're going to the burlesque clubs and the stand-up clubs and the fun.
Right.
And they're grouping in those people around the periphery, because obviously at the school gates, especially where my children go to school, everyone loves their wearables and their fancy smartphone watches, and they can't wait to monitor their own heartbeat and feed it into the computer and find out what's arousing them at what point and how they react to it.
I know. Govern me harder, me heart is, isn't it? That's what we're dealing with, really. Yes. It's just absolutely insane. So let me read you some of these comments. I think this is interesting. I think this goes into what Alistair's saying. It's not such a niche view, Alistair. I think you'll find. Ray J said they're testing systems before they collapse Western economies. Is that kind of what you're talking about as well, to a certain degree?
I mean, to a certain degree, yeah. The example I would give people is, like Klaus Schwab, like that guy.
Yeah.
It's like the enemy that you're up against is incredibly intelligent and sophisticated and the master of all deception. Like, if you look at Klaus Schwab, how obvious is he as like a bad guy? He's like a cartoon. It's like, I will take all of the money and I will, you're all nothing, and wearing all black like a Bond villain. It's like, you really think that is their guy that they're trying to keep hidden from you? It couldn't be any more obvious that he is up there as the one for you to discover and go, oh, look at this guy, he's evil. It's like, yeah, they want you to think that, dude.
So
like,
true.
It's more complicated than that. It's more dangerous than that. It's not like this whole gotcha, we found Klaus Schwab. It's like, that's what they're setting you up to realize, so that the one man, which is, this is a biblical view that I have, it's potentially the Antichrist that will turn up. And he will seem like a great guy, and he will bring peace to all the world, and he will unite all the world's religions, and he will seem like this great, great person that's coming to save everything. But that's the person to really worry about, which is it's a very, very high-level deception, isn't it? Which is actually what we're up against. If you look at the way COVID-19 worked and how slick it was, and how all the countries in the world had the same set of rules, human beings, we're not that clever enough to come up with that. There's a higher power of evil that's orchestrating this, and it's actually something spiritual. It's actually something supernatural. It's a very, very strong, coordinated attack of evil. It's not this, I am the German man with the,
You're
what I mean? It's not him, dude.
That's
He's
right. Yeah, it's cliche.
Character.
That's almost cliche, isn't it? To distract us and to generate 1 trillion comments online to distract us from everything. Yeah. You're absolutely right. But go on, Tanya. I'm loving this conversation. We probably go on for hours actually talking about this. But go on, Tanya. Go on.
I was just going to say that people are searching for somebody that can save them. But really, when they say save them, they mean keep them exactly where they are without having to evolve at all personally, so that they can just keep what they want. And what they want is quite limited. They really want to be left alone and have a chance to go to Spain once a year. That's it. And but they think that that's going to come externally, and it's not. It's going to come from understanding when to say no, and also not looking to constantly delegate your own personal autonomy to an external source.
Right.
And once people, because when this happens again, and it doesn't really matter, it will be very small. It'll be, you just have to give up this little thing and then you'll quickly have it back. And people aren't patient enough. So more worrying than the crap that we're watching online is the speed, the attention deficit, the turnover. So people genuinely can't wait anymore. They just couldn't wait. They couldn't wait a year to go on holiday. They couldn't wait for anything to crumble. They couldn't accept.
Right, that's right. Jab me hard. All of that stuff, isn't it? Mask me up. All of that. Yes.
Everybody just need, in my humble opinion, people need to try themselves to increase their own focus. And once they learn how to increase their own focus, they will. As she says, I'm so bad at this, but I'm making an effort. But once people can develop their own attention, they will be able to resist things for longer. And the more people resist, however incremental those resistances are, the more obvious the agenda becomes, because the agenda too is impatient. So if we can just stretch out that waiting, if the more people can wait a bit longer, then the agenda will become much clearer to more people faster. And if we can just tip the balance so that the agenda becomes clearer this side of it, then even if it still comes to fruition, there will be pockets where people can escape, this system, which is definitely, I feel, on the horizon. And I don't want to be part of it. It'd be nice if it wasn't just me and Alistair
it's one of the best ways they can do that, Tanya, is to buy tickets to our tour.
Yes, because historically the court jesters have been the ones who have been speaking truth to power. So what you're doing is you're pulling that back again. You are prepared to speak truth to power, not prepared to, be kiss asses. And there has to be a place for that. There has to be a place for proper comedy that is prepared to be cutting edge and return to what it's supposed to be. Yeah, Northampton.
Absolutely.
Before the day, I will promote it again. Absolutely. And but there are still too many asleep, Stephen. But Jan said if people refuse to use QR codes, they would affect the profits of the globalists straight away. But again, going back to what Tanya's just said, it is that we want everything immediately. I blame credit cards, right? I blame credit cards because the moment that we had credit cards, we were in an instant gratification society. So rather than saving up for that 3-piece suite that you wanted, you could have it instantly. And I think that to a certain degree, this is obviously just my theory, but I think to a certain degree, what it did was create this idea that we should have everything instantly rather than perhaps wait for it or save towards it. And the same thing applied with C19, and the level of compliance there will forever and a day disgust me because I was not born to doff my cap or get down on my knees, right? I'm just not made that way. And clearly you two aren't either. So, before you leave us, tell us, just give us both parting shots. Alistair, just tell us anything you want to.
I mean, listen, the best way to counter all this is to obviously buy tickets to our tour, okay? Because people like us will disappear if you don't support us. It's very difficult to be producing comedy and content that the establishment doesn't like. It's very, very difficult. It's very hard to get. And once real comedy is gone, it'll be never coming back. And there's no more real comedy show than our comedy tour. And, I really, really, really would suggest that people come and see and bring friends that are not awake, and we might wake them up for you. That happens a lot.
Especially to Northampton, bring friends. Exactly. And so just people are saying in response to me talking about credit cards, a lot of people have said, and Littlewood catalogues. I get that as well. Absolutely. Yes, same thing. Instant gratification. Tanya, word from you before you leave us, sweetheart. What a pleasure it's been to have you both today.
Thank you so much for having us. I totally agree with you, Sonia. The rot started with credit cards, but as you have them, use them now to buy tickets.
Yes. Yes. Tell them. Best wishes for the tour. All the luck in the world to you both.
Thank you, Sonia.
It's lovely to have you with us today. Thank you for coming. Unexpected directions that this conversation went, which was so much the better for it, frankly. Really wonderful. Wonderful to have you with us, everybody. Alistair Williams and the lovely Tanya Edwards. What stars. Brilliant. Lovely to have you. Take care. Take care of yourself. Bye. Have a lovely week. Bye. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Wonderful. Yes, great self-promotion. Let's promote it. All the luck in the world to you both. Oh, I've left that comment on the screen. You are both stars. Thank you. Yes, indeed they are, aren't they? Right. Where do we want to go? Where do we want to go, beautiful people? I want to talk about some stuff like this. Makes me really upset, right? And it makes me really upset because we have such priorities about who we seem to care about and who we don't. And let me just bring in this lad who I care about and whose family I care about. Oops, what's that? Sorry, what have I got going on here? This is Daniel Angerin, or at least it was, before a madman decided to kill him. And what was weird was I was actually live on air on my TNT breakfast show when this happened in Haynell in Essex. Some people call it East London. And this was last April. And what happened was Marcus Monzo just went on this killing spree. went on this killing spree and killed poor Daniel with a 24-inch sword in Hainault. And many people are saying, is it a psyop, as people believe, or a genuine person and account? Because what's been interesting is since that, and let me be absolutely clear here, the main priority of what I'm saying here right now is the child who was murdered, the people who were injured, and the grieving loved ones. Those are the priorities. But what is very interesting is the narrative that is springing up around the murderer. And Wake Up is Wake Up for a reason, is we often tackle that which the mainstream won't ask questions about. And I feel that we always should. So this is Marcus Monzo. And he was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 38 years and 309 days in jail. He's 37, from Canning Town in London. He was found guilty of Daniel's murder, as well as 3 counts of attempted murder, wounding with intent, and possession of an offensive weapon. And the narrative around him is very interesting. So one, they are pushing this whole idea that he was an excessive cannabis smoker. Now, in fact, the judge made a very big deal about it. So these images that I'm showing you here, the top one is just straight to camera. The one of him lying on the floor is where the police finally managed to corner him. And the other one is where the police are preparing to taser him. And many people have said to me and written to me saying this is the whole thing is a psyop, because this guy is just really weird. It's like his Twitter account is really peculiar. And what we've heard is that this man is a flat earther who's a follower of people like Elon Musk, who has an excessive cannabis habit. Now, all of that is really interesting, because really what we're dealing with at the end of the day is a psychopathic murderer. And why they need to feel the need to attach all these other things to him, I'm not entirely sure. And this reminds me of very recently, the murder of the mother and 2 daughters. They talked very extensively about him being a fan of Elon Musk and Andrew Tate example. Now, you don't have to be a fan of any of those people to see these are asides, because what they're actually suggesting is that this man, who apparently believed in flat earth, whether he did or he didn't, and whether they claim he smoked 100 cannabis joints a day. Well, first of all, how does anyone afford that? And I feel that all of this is really distracting from the real issue. And the real issue is something that people have to start tackling. And that is this man. He wasn't born in the UK. He arrived from southern Brazil. And a lot of his outpouring, again, seems to be a dislike and an anger towards British people, what we stand for. And this whole idea that he was just such a cannabis freak, which even the judge's comments are about that. The judge, Mr. Justice Benathan, told him, your choosing to consume cannabis over months and days was the dominant cause of your state that day. Now, I don't doubt that for a percentage they will be affected by cannabis, but that is no reason, because they're doing everything they can not to make cannabis legal. I'm not talking about the stuff that's been altered. They just don't want to make actual natural plants legal. So I believe that they are using this case for it. But we also should be asking, how integrated was this man? Because obviously we are needing to learn to integrate with each other, because if we don't integrate, then what we have is ghettoized situations, people with ghetto mentalities. And it's that whole thing of, and I'm going to paraphrase it badly, this whole idea that if somebody doesn't feel part of the village, they will burn it down just to feel the flames. This is not justifying this maniac's actions. I actually think he's a maniac. And I think that's what we should be dealing with. The fact that he's a maniac and he killed people. And this poor child was one of his victims. Well, I think it is almost irrelevant, all the other stuff, flat earth and everything else, because this seemed to me like somebody with serious mental health issues, had a history of it, who wasn't being properly treated. So I think there are a number of factors here that have very little to do with flat earth. right? So the fact that they're trying to use things like that, because obviously what they want to do is listen, I don't take a position either way, one way or another, but I know people who talk about flat earth and they're not as insane as people would like them to be thought of as. And I think that this again is more propaganda. We should be really careful about that, because as I say, the only people who matter are the victims. And this wee lad who had ambitions further, way beyond the psychopath who killed him. And those things deeply, deeply concern me, because when you see headlines like "Boy's alleged killer was flat earth conspiracy theorist inspired by Elon Musk," you don't have to like Elon Musk to know that that is really problematic. That's a really problematic headline. I believe it is anyway. Moving on. So I will look into that more. I absolutely will, because first of all, there should be much more that is said about that kid. Look at some of the stuff that we hear. I'm so sick of hearing about Lucy Connolly, by the way. I'm so sick of it, because there are, if the Rupert Lowe's of this world really care about prison sentencing being a problem, then they need to look into indeterminate sentences, where there are some people, I've talked to people and I've talked to their loved ones who've been in prison for 14 years for stealing a mobile, 14 years ago, but because they've been locked into a ridiculous system, this is where they're at. Right. I don't support theft, and I certainly don't support mobile theft, by the way, because those people are absolutely savages. And just, if anybody steals from me, they better be careful, because I want to kick them off their bike and all that sort of stuff. So I don't support any of that. All I'm saying is that there is this over focus on Lucy Connolly is problematic, because it's not about people caring about free speech. No, it's not. It's about what she represents and what she said. And I still think Miri AF had a very interesting take. Not that I agreed with everything there, but I think that Lucy Connolly is a true psyop in the true meaning of the word, in that she has been used. She exists as far as I'm concerned. What happened was very real, but she has been used in such a way as to make the rest of us self-censor ourselves and actually overly focus on her, because at the end of the day, what she actually said was illegal. It was criminal according to our law. So, people are banged up for not having TV licenses. People are banged up for stealing bottles of water. Okay. Why aren't these people out there saying something's very, very wrong? Nobody should ever be banged up for not having a TV license. Nobody. And just while I'm tackling mis and disinformation, I want to look at this. See if I can find this image, because again, I think this is important. I really think that we've been infiltrated. I think that the actual truth movement has been seriously infiltrated over the last 5 years. And the same kind of people who go on about, I don't know, Lucy Connolly also largely post a lot of dis and misinformation online. And one of the things they did was about Esther Rantzen. I'm just going to show you this imagery. And this imagery is not okay, right? Esther Rantzen, reprehensible, is a total supporter of the assisted suicide bill. And we've had a lot of emotive words from her and her daughter. Here she is actually pictured with her daughter. And after the most recent voting of the assisted suicide bill, which will now go on to the Lords, there were these images posted online of Esther Rantzen. There were a lot of accounts who claimed to be patriots who were doing it. And it's the same people who were like Free Lucy Connolly, for one example. And they were posting these fake images, and her daughter has come out saying, this is awful. Please stop doing it. Yeah, please stop doing it. Because you don't have to like Esther Rantzen to see the real problem with all this fakery online, because these people who post this online for likes, clicks, subscribes, and revenue from Elon Musk are not our friends. They're not our friends. These are the people who want to get us shut down. They're wrong uns. They really are. And I think what it does is it discredits genuine truth seeking. Social media is full of this BS, and we need to call it out. I love the fact that a lot of the big accounts now on X, because let's face it, X is still the absolute driving social media app. And a lot of the big patriotic and Zionist accounts on X have been busted for being based in India. These are not patriots. They're people who have gone, ooh, I know how I can weaponize and monetize people's hatred against brown men. And these are brown men doing it. This is what's going on. And a lot of these patriots, they're just honestly, I'm sorry, they're foolish. I could see why we're being pushed around from pillar to post, because the actual people who should have an understanding of what's going on in our country are failing us. That which reminds me, I must bring back on Graham Moore, because he is somebody who's understanding what's going on in our country and how they are working against us. So yeah, I don't agree with people shoving that kind of shite online. Please don't do it. It discredits people. Right, I have a rant here. Let me see if I can find it. This is from Teresa. She's in our comments, and Teresa's rant was essentially about what was going on when she went into a bank, and then it just continues a little bit afterwards about what was going on in York. It's less than a minute, and have a listen, peeps. Have a listen. This is Teresa on the problems going on in York
City Centre to get a document from the bank from my father's estate to prove who I am. What a palaver, what a performance. It was a joke. While we were waiting to get this document, I heard a member of staff tell a couple that the person who needed to do their job, whatever it was they needed, couldn't be done because there wasn't anybody at the York main office branch until they employed somebody, which was probably going to be September. And if they wanted it doing, it was going to be, they would have to go to Hull. What a joke. And as I came out of the bank, there was somebody being stretchered away in an ambulance outside Marks and Spencer's. I saw about 20 emotional service support dogs on my 3-hour trip. It was a joke.
Well, so that's interesting. So I think the whole emotional support dog thing is very interesting as well. And that is definitely a topic for another time. But Teresa, what you're saying there is a real statement of our time and what is happening to in-person banking is that she needed to be able to substantiate and transfer some information regarding her father. But the person that she needed to speak to would not be available in that branch until September. That's extraordinary. I find that extraordinary. Thank you for that, Teresa. I appreciate it. And as for all the emotional service dogs, I'm not even sure what's going on. I mean, I understand on a level, because I love my dog. I love all dogs, and well, I don't know if I love all dogs, but I love every dog that I've ever met. I think for the most part, I don't think I've ever met a vicious dog as such. But for the most part, I think dogs are just kind of like naturally like emotionally supportive creatures. And so I'm not sure. I'm never sure about people using them in this kind of capacity to turn dogs into workers. I'm not. Something doesn't feel right in me about that. Something doesn't feel right in me about that. But then some people could say the same about dogs for blind people, but I don't think it is the same. But maybe it is. Maybe dogs should not just be used as our workers. Maybe we should be taking a different look at our world. I don't know. It's just something that I'm thinking about. But clearly the emotional support dogs was an issue for Teresa, and I take it. And I don't want to dwell on this, but just say I'm so sick and tired of hearing about Jeff Bezos and his wedding. And the only thing that I learned from it is how many women now have distorted bodies who are supposed to be the beauty standard, because every single one of the women that I saw at that wedding have distorted bodies. They're not natural. Like Kim Kardashian, Kylie Jenner. I mean, the wife, Lauren Sanchez, she's literally like plastic from head to toe. And people can do whatever they want with their money, right? Even if they want to spend $20 million, which is what apparently they did on their Venice extravaganza. But I don't want that crappy beauty standard shoved at us, because these women look deformed. They look ugly, actually. I find that the way that they, first of all, do they all have the same plastic surgeons? Because they're all looking the same. It's that Mar-a-Lago look where they've all got really pinched noses now. And they've even managed to make some of the male Margas look like women. And it's going on. Oh, yes, it is. It wasn't just kind of like the Biden administration that had men dressed as women. It's happening in Trump's land as well. Good news. Very good news. I see that the video that we did with Cheryl Granger, where she was talking about pregnant women, C19 in the UK. So according to Dr. Claire Craig, as of today, which was, I think, 3 days ago, pregnant women are no longer eligible for the COVID vaccines in the UK. That would be phenomenal. if that is the case. Cheryl had tweeted separately about it, saying it's just been announced that COVID-19 vaccine is to be stopped in pregnancy from autumn. But Dr. Claire Craig saying it stopped. Now, that would be incredible. But we shouldn't just let them stop it. And that's that. We need to find out, what is their official reason for stopping it? Because they know, and they know we know. How many pregnant women and their babies in utero have been affected by this? Dame June Rain, who was allowed to leave the Medicines Agency, and as a dame, having pushed all of this, we shouldn't let people like that get away scot-free. We shouldn't just allow them to resign from office or retire. No. We should have it built that if you are in public service and you are involved in public health, we should have it written into their contract as a clause that if you knowingly gave false information when you were in office, and we can prove it, then you should be subject to charge and a trial and possibly a conviction. And there is a great deal of substantial information to prove that these people, including Dame June Rain, knew the dangers of it. And also that in that contract should be that if you haven't done enough to protect people as well, and she absolutely didn't do enough. And she's been able to go along off on her probably lovely whatever. I don't know how much she's received after she's left the MHRA, but she has been absolutely involved in pushing that, and now they've removed it for pregnant women. So the question is why? What's the dealio? Okay, just briefly, we are now rounding in the last week of the P. Diddy trial. Now, this I think is interesting because it's a big fat failure. I would be absolutely shocked and surprised if they managed to get him on what they wanted to get him. The last arguments in the case against him were heard on Friday. When the jurors return to the courtroom today, the judge will explain the law and how the charges work to them. Then the 12 will go off to deliberate, and deliberation can take anything. It can take half an hour to days, weeks. I don't know if it's ever taken months, maybe, I don't know. There is no saying how long this will last, but I will be surprised if they believe that the state has proven the crimes against him. I think we saw nothing during the trial. I think that we have been deliberately fed a line. It reminds me absolutely of what has taken place with the whole Epstein issue, and nothing that people who claimed to be there said happened. It was largely reduced to him getting his kicks by paying male prostitutes to have sex with his girlfriends. That's not as scandalous as what we were told was going on. There will be people on that jury that will be reluctant to convict him for anything substantial, even if they convict him for his brutality against his ex-girlfriends. And Combs's defense team finished their closing arguments. Defense attorney Mark Agnifilio said that the prosecution had badly exaggerated the case against him, and said that really his lifestyle was just that of a swinger. See, this really troubles me. It's like anything. It's like an inquiry. It all depends on the terms of reference, depending on what kind of outcome you might get. They also said that it was a fake trial created by the prosecution, and the real version that the jury can see based on the evidence. And he was sarcastic because he had the sarcastic tone of a defense lawyer who knows that the prosecution are struggling. So I think it's interesting. Just as a reminder, Combs is charged with sex trafficking, racketeering, conspiracy, and transportation to engage in prostitution. He denies all the charges. So we shall see. We shall see. If they convict him of the higher criminal, they'll probably convict him on something, but then he's already served time. But if they convict him of the higher charges, I will be shocked, because I don't see how they've proven that case. But I don't claim to know it all about how justice works. No, indeed, I don't. And just so you know, I have now submitted ideas to Deception Detective, by the way. I asked you the other week who you would like me to put to him, that we would like to have analysed. And I've submitted your ideas. That includes Lucy Letby Doctors, Michael Barrymore, and Sean Jenkins, the foster father of Billy Joe Jenkins, who was murdered. And I've submitted that and I'm waiting for a response. So we shall see. We shall see what he says, if indeed anything. I sincerely hope he says something. Anything else that I want to say to you, beautiful people? As ever, I want to thank you very, very dearly. Our wonderful donators. You people are incredible. Martin R, John G, Michael L, Claire D, Gemma M, Hound Dog Shot, Becky T, Jade T. Thank you in the super chat to Fred, to Simon, to Sticky Marks, to Catherine, to Andy Turbo, to anybody else I've missed. Thank you so much. It is so very much appreciated, your support. I really do very much appreciate you. And thank you to Neil Harvey for becoming a Patreon producer. That is also much appreciated. Thank you to anybody else who's bought me a coffee, including lovely Lena. Thank you. You're absolute stars. I do truly appreciate it. And lovely Michelle caught up with our nature spot last week. I like to finish on something positive, people. You know I do, although this is not what I'm finishing on, but I do enjoy nature. Nature is there for us to appreciate, not to eat. Oh, but hey, I'm not judging you. I'm not judging you. Right. And best to eat. If you're going to kill them, better to eat them than just do it for sport, right? Don't be bloody like the royals. So anyway, that's taken me away from what I wanted to say. So Michelle said she just caught up from this morning. The ending positive is brilliant. And she said, so the nature energy vibration you ended with was fantastic. Somewhere else we completely aligned to. Indeed. My recent ones are the new baby cygnets. Let me have a look at some of these images. Let's bring in some beautiful images of nature, because why ever not? Why ever not? What image can I bring in first of all to make sure I've got them? Just bear with me. Just bear with me. Oh, here we go. I might have to bring in a double one together. And baby cygnets, Michelle said, oh, look at that. Look at them. This is the fourth set I fed by hand, even when the dad is being protective. My reconnecting to nature is where it all began for me. And I hear you, Michelle. I always feel really cleansed when I spend time out in nature and observe how nature works, because what we've talked about before is how much we can actually learn from nature. And, the dad being protective, that's exactly what dads are supposed to do. I love all of it. I love the way you've caught it, the way you're able to get so close without them seeming to have a problem with you, because they know. And that's the other thing that I love, is that nature, when we engage with it on a regular basis, they know who's who. Anybody around here has seen my video of me with foxes. I got to know a fox family and ended up feeding them on the regular. And I even made one video of me getting to know one of the foxes, where it started out at the front of my house when we lived in an old school. Started off at the front of my house, and the fox was like at night, and then it started to come out in the day, and then it started to hang around my plants, and then it would come for food. And I just love that, the way they start to trust you. And I love that in that imagery, Michelle, the way that you're able to get so close to them, even with daddy being protective, because they know you're not going to hurt them. And I just love that. I think that's beautiful. And we need more of that. We really need more of that. And it just makes me happy. Makes me happy. And so thank you for that imagery. I was just looking for the one where daddy was popping out his head, Michelle. And I'm not quite sure what I've done it with it. But thank you for those images. Very wonderful. I want to end on gratitude today, because we talk about it often, but I feel it's a sentiment and emotion that we can't get enough of. And it's really about simple appreciation. And I was sitting rather in my garden, and I was just drinking a cold drink, and I just sat there and I looked around me and I thought, I have it all. I really don't want for much more. I'm truly, genuinely happy. I love doing Wake Up, which I dedicate myself to as my work these days. I absolutely love it. I get excited about, whatever new investigations we're going to do next. And I was just sitting there and I was just looking, and I'm so grateful for the fact that we have a mature garden. People before us, when we moved in 5-6 years ago, they had cultivated a fantastically mature garden. I hardly need to do anything other than keep it neat. And even that I was appreciative of, because we have a brilliant local gardener who comes in, frankly, next to nothing. I always pay him an extra hour because he's just so brilliant. And he comes in and he makes the garden look fantastic and reaches the places that I can't reach. And I was appreciative of him and how lovely he makes the garden look. And I'm so appreciative of my loved ones and my friends. I'm appreciative of the fact that I have a roof over our heads and we have decent food and running water. And all of those things, all that gratitude, I think, is really important, because many people take for granted their life. And I never think that's a good idea, because what I do know about gratitude is that the moment that you're grateful about something, you find a reason to be grateful about something else. And I never tire of being grateful. And also, I think that it's a throwback to my childhood. Many people tell you that if they came from some kind of, I don't know, difficult background, right? And according to the authorities, my background was difficult. Okay. We had various authority intervention. My poor sister was put in a home when she was 13. All different things happened. The authorities intervened. We were a very loving family, if a bit chaotic and a bit different. My mum was a medium and we lived in a small village in Gloucestershire, and we were set apart from everybody else and we were othered by everybody else. And a lot of it was difficult. And I felt kind of deep senses of shame and kind of abandonment at school and everything. And I think what happens when you come from that sort of background, and when you have reached who you are, which I have, this is like Sonia in the raw now. I'm not impacted by, what anybody asked me to do and people are paying, none of that, absolutely none of that. I'm publicly funded and I'm in the raw, and what you see is what you get. There's no sides to me. And I sometimes even say stuff that lands me in trouble because I speak honestly. And all of that, I think, is as a consequence of my childhood. So even my childhood, I have gratitude for. I have a lot of gratitude for, because I come from a fantastic family. And hardships are no measure of a bad family. We were financially impoverished, but we were rich in every other way. And even looking back on that, I have gratitude for, because I can appreciate so much. So when I sit out in my garden, how beautifully mature it is, and knowing that everything is kind of fine and safe around me, I have gratitude that my daughter hasn't had to have been raised in a similar environment to the one that I was, and that gives me gratitude. So all these different things together, and I think that practicing gratitude is a good health thing to do. It definitely increases your happiness, no doubt about it. It will definitely improve your sleep if you've got problems with your sleep. It will improve your relationships, and it will even give you better physical health, because there are numerous studies which show that wallowing and a negative mindset is very, very bad for your mental and physical health. And if you want to know how to cultivate it, simple stuff. When I don't even know now, maybe 10 years ago, might have been longer, don't hold me to it, but I reckon about a decade ago, I started, when I was actually going through quite a dark time, and I started a gratitude jar. So anytime something nice happened, it could be something as simple as a stranger smiling at me in the street. I would write it down and I'd put it in the jar. And when I felt down, I would dip in there and I'd pull it out and remind myself of something good that happened. I don't need to do that anymore, because I naturally now have gratitude, because I've cultivated it to such a degree. And I know that it has absolutely unquestionably improved my mental health and my stamina and my stoicism, all those good things. So I'm here just to say to you, what are you grateful for today? In the comments, tell me, what are you grateful for today? And tell me what's going on. Thank you. I appreciate that, JMK. I was so thankful for your show and our woken up like-minded community. Yes, absolutely. On a plane is grateful to waking up. Oh, hallelujah. Hugh is grateful for the sun. Thank you, Marco. I'm grateful for you too. And healing guidance. Lovely, Michelle, with the images of the birds. Simply to breathe with ease. Being a mother to my son. Wonderful, Em. Wonderful. And night, Nikki. I'm grateful to be alive. And I'm grateful to you, Marlena. I absolutely am. And Marlena is one of those people who, and actually I get quite weepy when I feel good vibrations. I felt good vibrations about her right from the get-go. And she's just one of those people who's like enters things with a full heart and not too much judgment. And I really appreciate that. Thank you, Marlena, for being one of our viewers. And I just saw lovely Lovely. Where is she? Diane, the chance to be part of UK column. Wonderful, darling. And magnificent reminder for today. In these darkest days, gratitude for my pillow, my bed, my boys, my curiosity, Desert Dancer podcast. So that is wonderful. And Deborah said, I'm grateful that all my kids are still with me. See, all of this is good stuff. This is all good stuff because you can immediately feel it lifts your spirit up. I love it. And Irish Eye says, my bees, animals, birds, and you and our community. Absolutely. And love Wake Up. I love Wake Up too. And Davia says, today I'm going to be happy and healthy with no stress and anxiety. Hallelujah to that, my friend. And the Blue Nomad is grateful for a full belly. And I hear you loud and clear. And again, if you come from a background where there was any lack or poverty, you can be even more grateful for those things. Once you see the beauty, this is beautiful, Shug, thank you. Once you see the beauty of just being alive, everything changes. And SMG says, I'm grateful for a fag and a coffee right now. And enjoy it. Enjoy it. I am not here to tell you not to enjoy your life, right? I'm not, eh? And isn't it the wild way? What a beautiful chat right now. Gratitude's flowing. Exactly. And Claire is in the same place as me. I say, Claire says she's in the same place. I say, thank you for everything I have. Hallelujah. And what is this, Pandora? Grateful. My blood Rishi shrooms are happy with their new home and thriving faster than expected. I think I understand exactly what you're talking about there. And I'm also glad I've not been caught yet, says on a plane. And Freedom Journey is grateful for their health, and hearts to you too, Marlena. You know I mean it, darling. Our health is our wealth. Indeed it is. These are beautiful. These are absolutely beautiful comments, and I love you so much, and you're amazing. You're incredible. And thank you all for being here today. What an incredible time to be alive, and we are here cataloging it. You are amazing. And I'm going to finish with a quote as ever. We can complain because rose bushes have thorns, or we can rejoice because thorns have roses. Yes, indeed, we can. And I love that quote. I will see you Friday. You might see me in the interim. Whoever knows, I want a free flow. But if not, you will definitely see me Friday, God willing. And have a beautiful, beautiful week. And enjoy, if you're in the UK or wherever you are, enjoy the weather. You know the basic stuff to do, right? And that is, don't sit out in the midday sun. Cover your head if you can. And I'm not going to suggest you put anything on your skin, but don't take health advice from me. Obviously, you've got to do whatever you've got to do. Take good care of yourself. I love you, and I will see you Friday. Take good care of yourself.